The twin suns of Vega 9 had barely risen when the colony's alarm bells began to wail. Dusty orange light spilled across the rugged terrain, bouncing off the jagged metal structures of Outpost Vega 9. The small settlement clung stubbornly to life on this barren mining world, where survival demanded skill, courage, and sometimes a touch of luck. Maris Cade stood on the central platform, her hands bound behind her back. Around her, the colony's population had gathered, a tense crowd of miners, engineers, and weary families. Their eyes were fixed on her with suspicion and fear. She kept her head high, refusing to let panic show. She had faced far worse in the lab and on the mines, but never an execution in front of hundreds. The magistrate, a tall man with a sharp metal prosthetic arm, stepped forward from the platform. His uniform gleamed despite the dust. His authority unquestionable, or at least enforced. "Maris Cade," he said, his voice carrying across the gathering. "You stand accused of sabotaging the colony's main power grid. This act threatened every life here. By law, your sentence is execution at dawn." Maris's heart skipped a beat, but she forced herself to breathe evenly. She knew the truth. She had not sabotaged the grid. The system had failed because of greed and carelessness, not malice. Someone was framing her, but at that moment, her words would fall on deaf ears. From the crowd, murmurs rose like the wind over the rocky plains. "She's guilty," some whispered. "Everyone saw her near the grid last night." Others shook their heads. "No, she's one of us. She wouldn't do that." Maris's mind raced. There had to be a way out. Vega 9 was isolated. A speck in the galaxy, far from the central authority that might protect her. And the magistrate had already made up his mind. "Do you have any final words?" the magistrate asked, his prosthetic arm clicking as he folded it behind his back. Maris opened her mouth, but the words froze. What could she say that would convince a colony desperate for justice that she was innocent? Lies would not help. Pleading might only hasten her fate. Instead, she swallowed, meeting the magistrate's gaze with calm defiance. Before anyone could react, the ground shook. Dust clouds rose, and the crowd stumbled backward. The sound of engines filled the air, metallic and furious. A grav cycle, sleek and black, skidded to a halt at the edge of the platform. Its rider was unmistakable, even from a distance. Jace Talon, the notorious gunslinger, a figure whispered about across frontier colonies, dismounted with fluid grace. His coat, dark and weathered, fluttered in the dusty wind. The grav cycle's engines hissed as they powered down, leaving an eerie silence behind, broken only by the stunned gasps of the crowd. "I claim this woman," Jace announced, his voice calm but carrying over the platform. "Maris Cade is under my protection. She is my bride." Shock rippled through the onlookers. The magistrate's face went pale beneath his tan skin. "This is outrageous," he barked. "Who dares?" Jace raised a single hand, and two small drones hovered from his coat, their sensors trained on the magistrate. "I dare," he said simply, "and I do not take orders from anyone in this colony who would punish an innocent person." The magistrate's enforcers moved toward him, but Jace's reputation was no rumor. He had faced mercenaries, pirates, and even rogue AI swarms, and survived. With a flick of his wrist, the drones discharged a stunning pulse, freezing the enforcers in place. Murmurs of awe and fear spread through the crowd. Maris blinked, disbelief mixing with hope. She had heard the stories of Jace Talon, the gunslinger, who operated by his own code, feared by criminals, and respected by those who valued justice. And now, he had arrived to save her. "Get her down," Jace said, approaching the platform. "We leave now, or die trying." Maris's knees trembled, but she obeyed. As he unbound her hands with careful precision, she noticed the way his eyes scanned the crowd, calculating every threat. Humans might fight machines with technology, she realized, but Jace relied on instinct, courage, and a deep understanding of human nature. An instinct that often proved more reliable than any AI or weapon. The magistrate recovered his voice. "This will not stand," he shouted. "You cannot just take her and leave. She belongs to the law." Then the law will catch us if it can, Jace said with a smirk. But first, we survive. He gestured toward his grav cycle. Maris hesitated, glancing at the platform where the colonists watched in stunned silence. She could feel the weight of the crowd's judgment, the expectation of her fate, and the dangerous uncertainty of this moment. Then she realized something important. She had a choice. She could stand there and face a death she did not deserve, or she could trust this stranger and fight for her life. Her decision was made before she even spoke. "I'm coming," she said, her voice steady. The grav cycle roared to life, lifting slightly off the ground. Jace mounted first, then helped Maris onto the seat behind him. The crowd gasped as they accelerated, skimming over the rocky terrain, kicking up clouds of orange dust. Behind them, the magistrate's enforcers were still frozen by Jace's drones. And the crowd had frozen in a mixture of fear and admiration. Some silently cheered, recognizing a rare sight. Humans helping humans, standing together against injustice, even in the harshest conditions. As they sped toward the outskirts of the colony, Maris couldn't help but notice the world rushing past her. The sun glinted off the jagged cliffs, the distant sandstorms rolling like slow-moving mountains. For the first time in hours or maybe days, she felt alive. Every sense was alert. The wind in her hair, the engines beneath her, the distant hum of the colony fading behind them. Jace's voice broke the silence. "You're lucky," he said casually. "Most people don't get a gunslinger arriving at the last moment." "I'd rather not rely on luck," Maris replied, studying the horizon. "But I'll take it." He glanced back at her, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "Good. Luck is nothing without action. And you've got brains. That counts for more than most guns." Maris's lips twitched in a faint smile. For the first time in the past few hours, fear was mingled with curiosity. She didn't know this man, yet she could see the fire in his eyes, the same fire she recognized in herself. Maybe, just maybe, they could survive this together. The terrain ahead was treacherous. Jagged cliffs, abandoned mining equipment, and the ever-present threat of rogue AI patrols awaited them. Yet, as they raced toward the unknown, Maris felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Humanity might be fragile in the vast galaxy, she realized, but ingenuity, courage, and determination could still carve a path where none seemed possible. And Vega 9, harsh and unforgiving as it was, had already begun to teach her that lesson. Hours later, as the suns climbed higher, the colony shrank behind them. Dust and heat shimmered in the distance, and Maris finally allowed herself to take a deep breath. The day had begun with death looming over her. But now, with Jace Talon at her side, she faced the frontier with something new. A chance to fight, a chance to prove her innocence, and a chance to show that humanity, even in a remote corner of the galaxy, was still a force to be reckoned with. The adventure was just beginning. The winds of Vega 9 whipped across the rocky plains as Jace Talon and Maris Cade sped away from the colony on his grav cycle. The air shimmered with dust, and the suns overhead made the jagged cliffs glow like molten metal. Maris held tight to Jace, her fingers brushing the worn leather of his coat, her mind racing with 1,000 questions. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice barely audible over the engine's roar. Jace didn't answer immediately. He focused on the winding paths ahead, navigating the dangerous terrain with a skill that made Maris's head spin. "Finally," he said, "someplace safe for now. The magistrate won't give up easily, and neither will the enforcers he controls." Maris swallowed, trying to calm the pounding of her heart. Safe? She wasn't sure what that even meant on a planet like Vega 9. Every shadow could hide a threat. Every canyon could mask a trap. But with Jace leading, she felt a spark of hope, one that had almost vanished in the cold morning air when she stood on the platform. As they rode, Maris tried to study him without appearing too obvious. Jace Talon was a legend, but seeing him up close made the stories pale. His movements were precise, almost fluid, and his eyes scanned the environment constantly. Every gesture, every decision seemed carefully measured. And yet, There was something human in him, something that hinted at laughter, surprise, and even kindness. "You don't speak much," Maris observed. "I listen more than I talk," he replied. "You'll need that if you want to survive on Vega 9 or anywhere in the frontier." Maris nodded, considering his words. She had grown up on isolated colonies herself, but nothing had prepared her for the reality of being hunted, marked as a criminal for a crime she didn't commit. Yet Jace's calm confidence made her realize that fear could only slow her down. Action, quick thinking, and courage were what would keep her alive. Hours passed as they navigated through the jagged canyons. The grav cycle skimmed over rough terrain, floating inches above the cracked rocks. Occasionally, Maris would spot movement at the edges of her vision shadows, glimmers of metal. Rogue AI patrols, she guessed, deployed by the magistrate to track them down. "They're coming," Jace said without looking back. "Small patrols. Not enough to stop us if we stay smart." Maris's pulse quickened. "What do we do if they catch us?" he smirked. "We don't let them. Humans have a funny way of turning the odds in their favor. Even against better tech. We adapt. We survive." That was when she realized why he was called the Gunslinger. Not because of skill with a weapon alone, but because he embodied the human spirit. Clever, fearless, adaptable, HFY humanity. Freaking yes shone in his every movement. As night fell, the suns dipping behind the jagged cliffs, Jace found a narrow canyon to hide. The grav cycle's engines quieted, and they stepped off to survey the area. The canyon walls were high, blocking sight from above. It was the perfect temporary refuge. Maris finally allowed herself to exhale. "We're safe. For now," she murmured. Jace's eyes scanned the darkening canyon. "Safe enough. But not for long. The magistrate will send more. Faster. Smarter." Maris frowned. "Do you think he really believes I did this?" "I don't care what he believes," Jace said, crouching beside her. "It's what he wants. Fear and control. He punishes anyone who challenges him, no matter the truth." The wind howled, and Maris shivered. "Then what do we do?" Jace smiled faintly. "We show him what humans can do when they fight for what's right." Maris looked at him, understanding dawning. She had always relied on intelligence and skill, but now she realized she needed courage and instinct as well. With Jace's guidance, she might just survive, and maybe even turn the tables. The next day, they moved cautiously through abandoned mining tunnels, remnants of Vega 9's earlier settlement. Rusted machinery, long-forgotten grav lifts, and shattered control panels lined the path. Maris felt a chill as she passed each relic of the colony's past. Human ingenuity had built this place, yet it had decayed, abandoned to the harsh world outside. "This way," Jace said, leading her down a narrower tunnel. "The drones won't follow us here. Too tight. Too many obstacles." Maris nodded, taking careful steps over broken metal plates. "You're good at this. How do you always know the right path?" He glanced at her, one eyebrow raised. "Experience. Humans make mistakes. Machines follow orders. I know which mistakes are worth making and which ones will kill me." They paused when a soft hum echoed through the tunnel. Maris stiffened. "What's that?" "Patrol drones," Jace whispered. "They're close. Stay low. Stay low. Stay low." Before she could react, small, spherical drones rolled out from the shadows. Their sensors glowed red, scanning for heat signatures. Maris's mind raced. She spotted a series of exposed conduits along the tunnel wall, old wiring from the abandoned mining system. "Can we?" she asked hesitantly. Jace nodded. "Yes, hack them, quick. We need a distraction." Maris knelt, her fingers flying over the wires. Sparks crackled as she rerouted power, and the drones suddenly froze, their sensors spinning uselessly. They toppled over. Harmless but effectively disabled. Jace clapped her shoulder. "Not bad. Smart. Quick thinking. That's what keeps humans alive out here." Her heart raced with adrenaline and pride. For the first time in hours or maybe days, she felt capable. She wasn't just a target. She was a problem solver. A human who could survive even when the odds seemed impossible. The rest of the day passed with careful maneuvering, avoiding patrols and navigating the harsh canyon landscapes. Jace shared snippets of his past, tales of frontier colonies and rogue planets, where humans had faced impossible odds. Each story highlighted the same truth. Humans, clever and brave, could overcome even advanced technology and ruthless enemies. Maris listened, absorbing every word. Her own mind buzzed with possibilities. How to prove her innocence, how to survive, how to help the colony. She realized that human creativity, courage, and moral instinct could shine brightest under pressure. That was the lesson of Jace Talon, and the lesson she intended to carry forward. As night fell, they set up a temporary camp in a cave overlooking the canyon floor. A small fire flickered, casting long shadows on the walls. Maris sat quietly, staring at the flames, thinking of the colony she had left behind. She worried about the people still trapped under the magistrate's control, and about the danger her presence might now bring them. Jace sat beside her, tossing a piece of dried rations into the fire. "You worry too much," he said. "The colony will be fine. They'll survive. But you—" He paused, looking directly at her. "You need to survive first." Maris nodded slowly, taking in his words. She understood. Survival wasn't just about escaping bullets or drones. It was about courage, strategy, and refusing to give up even when the world turned against you. Humanity wasn't perfect, but it had grit, ingenuity, and a stubbornness that could defy any odds. Hours later, as the twin moons of Vega 9 rose overhead, Maris and Jace fell into a brief, uneasy sleep. Tomorrow, they would face new threats. Faster patrols, more enforcers, and perhaps the truth behind the sabotage that had brought Maris to this point. But for now, in the quiet of the canyon, they rested, knowing that humans resourceful, clever, and brave could survive where others would fail. And so, the journey continued. The notorious gunslinger and the accused engineer, fleeing an unjust law, navigating treacherous terrain, and standing against impossible odds. Vega 9's harsh frontier had already tested them. But the trials ahead promised danger, discovery, and the chance to prove that humanity, even in the far reaches of the galaxy, could rise above adversity with courage, skill, and heart. The first light of Vega 9's twin suns cut through the canyon, revealing a landscape of jagged cliffs, narrow ledges, and shifting sands. Maris Cade and Jace Talon were already on the move, leaving their temporary camp behind. The night's brief rest had refreshed them, but it also reminded Maris of the danger that lurked just beyond sight. "Patrols are moving faster today," Jace said, scanning the canyon ahead. "They've probably realized the last batch of drones failed. We need to stay ahead." Maris adjusted her grip on the grav cycle's handles, keeping herself steady. "Do they know who you are?" she asked, trying to mask the nervousness in her voice. "Most don't," he said with a shrug. "But legends travel fast. A few of them will recognize me. That's why we move quietly. Keep alert. Humans can outthink machines, but not if they're careless." Maris nodded, understanding the principle he lived by. Machines follow logic, patterns, and orders. Humans, on the other hand, could adapt, improvise, and make choices no one expected. That flexibility was often the difference between life and death. The canyon walls narrowed, forcing the grav cycle to hover just inches above the rocky ground. Maris felt her stomach tighten with every sudden jolt. The canyon was unforgiving. One wrong turn, one misjudged jump, and they could tumble hundreds of feet into the jagged valley below. Suddenly, the hum of grav engines changed. Ahead, a patrol of small drones emerged from behind a cluster of rocks. Their red sensors glowed ominously, scanning for heat and movement. Maris's heart skipped a beat. "Get ready," Jace said calmly. "This is where humans get creative." Maris remembered the abandoned conduits from the previous day. "We could use the terrain," she suggested. "The canyon walls, the rocks, Something to confuse them. Jace nodded approvingly. Exactly. Humans survive because we think differently than machines. Let's see if you're ready to put that to the test. The drones advanced steadily, rolling and gliding with mechanical precision. Maris studied the rocks along the canyon floor and noticed a narrow crevice, barely wide enough for the grav cycle to pass. She pointed it out to Jace. "Good eye," he said. "Follow me, but be precise." They veered sharply into the crevice, sparks flying as the cycles scraped against the jagged rock. The drones followed, but the tight space confused their sensors. One by one, they collided with the canyon walls, their mechanisms failing. Maris let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "That's what I mean," Jace said, a small grin on his face. "Machines think they're perfect. Humans prove them wrong." Maris smiled faintly. Despite the danger, she felt exhilarated. Every obstacle was a chance to prove that humanity could outsmart superior technology. Even in the far reaches of space, on a barren planet, humans could adapt and survive. Hours passed as they navigated the treacherous canyon network. They avoided patrols, sand traps, and unstable cliff edges, relying on Maris's sharp mind and Jace's instincts. By midday, they reached a plateau overlooking the lower canyon. From this vantage point, Maris could see the colony in the distance, tiny and fragile against the vast wilderness. "They'll never catch us," Maris said quietly. "Not if we stay smart." "Not if we stay smart," Jace repeated, as if committing the idea to memory. "But don't underestimate them. Machines are patient, and humans can make mistakes when they're tired." Maris glanced at him, realizing that his words weren't just caution, they were a lesson. In the frontier, survival wasn't just about running or fighting. It was about constant awareness, constant adaptation. Every choice mattered, and every decision could be the difference between life and death. As they descended into a narrower canyon, Maris spotted movement far below. A patrol of human enforcers, armed with energy rifles, was heading toward Vega 9. They were following a pre-programmed route, but had received updates from the magistrate's AI network. Their movements were predictable, which meant they were dangerous, but not unbeatable. "Looks like reinforcements," she said, gripping the grav cycle tightly. Jace nodded. "And we have the advantage. Humans can outthink patterns. Machines can't." They prepared to descend, using the canyon walls to shield themselves. Maris studied the patrol's behavior, noting every pause, every mechanical motion. Then she saw an opportunity. A narrow bridge of rock overhead. If they could get to it, they could drop boulders onto the patrol's path, slowing them down. "Can we do it?" she asked. Jace's grin widened. "You're the brains. Make it happen." Maris took a deep breath. She guided the grav cycle toward the bridge, while Jace provided cover, using small drone pulses to distract the patrol. The grav cycle rose slightly, clearing the rocks, and she maneuvered it carefully until they reached the edge. Then, with a practiced motion, she pushed against a loose boulder. It tumbled down the canyon, crashing into the path of the patrols. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and the human enforcers scrambled to avoid the sudden obstacle. "Not bad," Jace said, nodding with approval. "That's why humans survive. We see problems, and we solve them. Fast." Maris felt a thrill she hadn't expected. Danger was frightening. Yes, but it was also exhilarating. She realized that humans weren't just survivors. They were innovators, problem solvers, fighters. Even in a galaxy dominated by technology and ruthless authority, human ingenuity could make the impossible possible. By late afternoon, the canyon opened into a wide valley. Maris and Jace slowed, taking stock of the terrain. They were not yet safe, but they had gained distance. Their pursuers were confused, slowed, and forced to take alternative routes. "Tomorrow, we'll need to move again," Jace said. "The magistrate will send faster, smarter patrols. We'll need a plan." Maris nodded. She felt a determination rising in her chest. "I'll help. I know the colony systems. I can predict where they'll try to trap us. Jace glanced at her, impressed. Looks like you're learning the frontier way. Humans survive because we think, adapt, and act. You've got it. That night, they camped in a hidden cave near the valley floor. A small fire flickered, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Maris sat close to Jace, watching the flames. Her mind was alive with plans, ideas, and possibilities. She could feel herself growing stronger, sharper, more capable. "Do you ever rest?" she asked, breaking the silence. "Not until it's safe," he replied. "But humans rest when we can. We recover. We plan. That's another reason we survive. Even when the world seems against us, we find ways to endure." Maris smiled. She realized that this was more than survival. It was a lesson in what humanity could achieve. On Vega 9, far from home, under impossible odds, they were still clever, resourceful, and brave. And that meant they had a chance not just to escape, but to fight back. As the night deepened, the twin moons of Vega 9 rose high, casting silver light across the valley. Maris felt a renewed sense of purpose. Tomorrow, they would face more drones, more enforcers, and more danger, but she was ready. Humans had always overcome, even when the odds were impossible. And with Jace at her side, she was determined to prove that ingenuity, courage, and resilience could outmatch any machine or corrupt law. The night passed quietly, with the sounds of distant winds and the occasional metallic hum from far-off patrol drones. Maris slept lightly, alert even in rest. She dreamed of the colony, of the sabotage, and of the challenges ahead. She understood that the journey was far from over, but she also understood something profound. Humanity, even in the most hostile corners of the galaxy, could rise above adversity. And as the first light of dawn touched the valley, Maris awoke with determination. Today, they would move again. Today, they would face new trials. And today, they would continue to prove that even in a universe full of advanced technology and ruthless enemies, human ingenuity, courage, and resourcefulness could not be beaten. For Maris Cade and Jace Talon, the frontier of Vega 9 was not just a place of danger, it was a proving ground. A place where humanity, clever, brave, and unyielding, would show the galaxy what it meant to survive and to triumph. The black crater loomed ahead, a massive scar in the barren surface of Vega 9. Its jagged cliffs and cavernous depths gave it a reputation among the colony as a place where few survived and even fewer returned. But for Maris Cade and Jace Talon, it was the only place left to confront the syndicate that had framed her and to turn the tables on the magistrate. "We'll need a plan," Maris said, peering into the crater's dark maw. Her mind was already racing, calculating angles, paths, and potential traps. "They'll have drones, traps, and humans working with them. We can't just rush in." Jace nodded, scanning the perimeter with his sensors. "I've faced worse. But yes, a plan is better than luck. Humans survive because we think, adapt, and act. Let's see what we can do." They moved cautiously, descending the jagged slopes into the crater. The hum of drones echoed faintly, and occasional flashes of light revealed patrolling guards. Maris and Jace stayed low, using the shadows of the rocky terrain for cover. Every step required precision. One misstep could trigger alarms or fall into a trap. "This is where humans shine," Jace said quietly. "Machines follow patterns, rules, and orders. Humans see opportunities where others see walls. That's why we survive." Maurice glanced at him. "Then we need to create an opportunity. Something they don't expect." Ahead, they spotted the abandoned mining station that had become the syndicate's base of operations. It was heavily fortified with automated turrets and drone patrols. But Maris noticed weaknesses in their layout: old control panels, exposed conduits, and redundant systems. "I can hack the station," she said. "If I can access the central control, I can disable the turrets and even turn some of their drones against them." Jace gave a sharp nod. "Exactly. That's human thinking. Let's move." They crept closer, avoiding the line of sight of the drones. Maris's hands moved swiftly over her portable hacking device, rerouting power and overriding security systems. Sparks flew as she bypassed firewalls and AI protocols, each action precise and calculated. "Almost there," she whispered. "Just a few more circuits." Suddenly, a turret whirred to life nearby, its sensors locking onto their position. Maris froze for a heartbeat, then acted. With a quick swipe on her device, she redirected the turret's targeting system toward a nearby rock wall. The turret fired, shattering the cliff face, and the resulting debris distracted the nearby guards. Jace grinned. "Perfect. That's human ingenuity in action. Quick thinking, adaptation, survival." With the path cleared, they entered the station. Inside, the syndicate leader waited, flanked by human enforcers and drones. His eyes widened when he saw Maris and Jace. "How?" he stammered. "Humans," Jace said simply. "We survive, we adapt, and we fight back when we're pushed too far." Maris moved to a control console, overriding the station's AI systems. One by one, the syndicate's drones powered down, then reactivated under her control. The automated turrets, previously pointing at them, now targeted the enforcers instead. Chaos erupted as the syndicate's own forces were turned against them. "Now," Jace said, drawing his grav pistol. He moved with fluid precision, taking down enforcers who tried to flee or regroup. Each movement was calculated, each action deliberate, and yet instinctual. He was the human embodiment of skill and courage, showing that no machine or corrupt human could outmatch a determined person. The syndicate leader tried to escape into the deeper tunnels, but Jace was faster. He pursued on his grav cycle, weaving through the station's corridors and dodging obstacles with expert skill. Maris followed, monitoring the AI systems and providing guidance when necessary. Finally, Jace cornered the leader at the edge of a collapsed tunnel. The grav cycle skidded to a halt, and he faced the man squarely. "It's over," Jace said. "Humans survive because we act, think, and never give up. You underestimated us." The leader hesitated, then raised his hands. "You don't understand, I had no choice. Humans make choices," Jace replied. "And we face the consequences. You chose wrong." Meanwhile, Maris worked quickly to secure the station's systems. She accessed the central AI hub and broadcasted evidence of the sabotage to Vega 9's colony. Screens flickered to life throughout the settlement, showing logs, data, and proof that Maris had been framed. The colony reacted immediately. Miners, engineers, and families saw the truth and began to organize. Even from afar, their ingenuity and determination became a force of their own. They cut off supply lines, rerouted communication channels, and prepared to reclaim control of the outpost. Jace returned to Maris's side, nodding in approval. "That's what I mean by humans fighting back, not just with weapons, but with brains, courage, and unity. That's why we survive." Maris smiled, exhausted but exhilarated. She had faced death, betrayal, and impossible odds, and she had survived. And it wasn't just her courage that had won the day. It was human ingenuity, resilience, and the ability to adapt to situations where machines and corrupt humans expected weakness. The syndicate leader was secured, the station's drones under their control, and the colony's eyes now aware of the truth. Maris felt a sense of triumph, not just personal, but for humanity as a whole. On a barren planet, thousands of light years from central civilization, humans had proved once again that they could outthink, outmaneuver, and overcome even the most advanced technology. Jace clapped her on the shoulder. "Not bad, engineer. You've got guts, brains, and courage. That's a winning combination." Maris laughed softly, a sound she hadn't made in days. "I learned from the best," she said, glancing at him. "Humans survive because we work together, even when the odds seem impossible." As the suns began to set over the crater, casting long shadows across the rugged landscape, Maris and Jace looked out at the horizon. The battle was won, but the frontier was far from safe. More challenges would come, More threats would appear, and more tests of courage and ingenuity awaited. But for now, in this moment, they had triumphed. Humans had survived. Humans had fought back. Humans had proven, once again, that even in a galaxy dominated by advanced technology and ruthless power, the ingenuity, courage, and resilience of humanity could not be defeated. Maris felt a warmth in her chest, a quiet pride. She had been accused, hunted, and nearly executed, but she had survived. And she had survived not because of luck, but because of human determination, cleverness, and the refusal to give up. That was the lesson of Vega 9, the lesson she would carry with her forever. Jace turned to her, a rare softness in his eyes. "This isn't the end," he said. "The galaxy is full of challenges, but humans can face them. We adapt, we survive, and we triumph." Maris nodded, feeling the truth of his words deep within her. Together, they had faced impossible odds, outsmarted advanced machines, and overcome human treachery. They had done what humans did best. They had survived and turned the tide in their favor. The night settled over the crater, quiet and calm for the first time in days. Maris and Jace sat on the edge of the station, overlooking the settlement and the valley beyond. The stars began to sparkle in the Vega 9 sky, and for the first time in a long time, Maris felt a sense of peace. The frontier was harsh, the galaxy was vast, and danger was never far, but humanity, she realized, was never truly powerless. Intelligence, courage, and the will to survive were stronger than any AI, stronger than any corrupt law, stronger than any obstacle. And as she looked at Jace, the gunslinger who had saved her, she knew that together, they could face whatever came next. For now, though, they had won, and humanity had proven itself once more. The twin suns of Vega 9 rose slowly over the jagged cliffs, painting the barren landscape in shades of gold and orange. The black crater, which had seen chaos, danger, and confrontation, was now quiet. The syndicate's influence had been broken, the corrupt magistrate's hold on the colony exposed, and the truth of Maris Cade's innocence broadcasted to all corners of the outpost. Maris stood at the edge of the plateau overlooking the settlement. Her hands, now free of bonds or fear, rested on the railing of a makeshift observation deck. The colony below was alive with movement miners repairing damaged equipment, engineers reactivating the power grid, and families cautiously returning to their homes. Hope, fragile but strong, had returned to Vega 9. Jace Talon stood beside her, leaning on his grav cycle. He didn't speak immediately, but Maris could sense the pride in his stance. The gunslinger had seen many battles, many hopeless situations, but this victory was special. It wasn't just about survival. It was about humans proving, once again, that they could rise above impossible odds. "They're rebuilding," Maris said softly, her eyes following a group of miners lifting heavy beams. "They believed in me. Or at least, they believed in the truth." Jace nodded. "Humans survive because we adapt, we fight, and we protect each other. You didn't just survive, Maris, you led them, in your own way. That's what makes humans extraordinary." Maris allowed herself a small smile. She had faced execution, betrayal, and near-certain death. She had escaped, fought back, and now watched the fruits of human determination and ingenuity unfold before her eyes. It was an achievement not just for her, but for everyone on Vega 9. The sound of grav engines drew her attention. A group of the colony's leaders approached, led by one of the more respected engineers, a tall man named Dax Kor. His eyes, usually sharp and cautious, softened as he looked at Maris. You saved more than your own life," Dax said. "You reminded us what it means to survive, to fight with our minds and our courage. The colony owes you a debt it cannot repay." Maris shook her head. "I didn't do it alone. Jace Talon was here, guiding me, keeping me alive. And every one of you humans made choices today that machines could not predict. That's why we succeeded. Oh, BCs, Jace stepped forward, placing a hand on Maris's shoulder. Humans survive because we're clever, brave, and relentless. Today proved that again. Not because of weapons, or speed, or technology, but because of courage and brains combined. Dax smiled, a mixture of relief and admiration. Then, let's make sure the magistrate knows his rule is over. The colony needs a new beginning. The magistrate, now stripped of his authority and confronted with undeniable evidence, had retreated to the outskirts of the settlement. He had tried to rally support, but the citizens of Vega 9 refused to follow a man who punished the innocent and exploited fear. Humanity, unified and determined, had reclaimed control. Maris turned to Jace. "What now?" she asked. "Do we stay here? Do we leave?" Jace's eyes scanned the horizon, where dust storms moved in the distance and the twin suns burned hot in the sky. The frontier never stops. There will always be danger, always be challenges. But humans find a way. That's what we do. Maris considered his words. She had spent years confined to labs and workshops, focused on machines and systems. But the frontier had taught her a lesson machines could never teach. Human ingenuity, courage, and moral strength were the ultimate tools in any struggle. "They're rebuilding the colony," she said, looking down at the bustling settlement. "And I've proven that one person can make a difference." Jace smiled faintly. "You made a difference because you acted, thought, and refused to give up. That's what humans do. We survive. We fight. And when we must, we triumph." As the day progressed, the colony began to transform. Power systems were restored, damaged buildings repaired, and patrol routes reorganized to prevent further sabotage. Families returned to their homes, and the miners resumed their work, but with a renewed sense of pride. They had witnessed firsthand that even in the harshest environments, humans could rise above fear, deception, and technology when they worked together and acted wisely. Maris joined the engineers in restoring the main power grid. Her hands moved over the controls with skill and precision. Guided by experience and ingenuity, every action was purposeful, each decision a step toward securing the colony's future. She realized that survival wasn't just about avoiding danger, it was about creating stability, improving lives, and proving that humans could thrive even under the most extreme conditions. Jace observed quietly, allowing her to take the lead. When she finally looked up, he nodded approvingly. "You've done more than survive, Maris. You've shown that humans can reclaim control, even when everything seems lost." A group of miners approached, carrying heavy equipment for repairs. One of them, a young woman named Lyra, stopped and bowed her head slightly. "Thank you, Maris," she said, "for showing us that courage and intelligence matter more than fear." Maris smiled warmly. "We all played a part. Humans survive because we help each other. That's what matters most." As evening approached, the twin moons of Vega 9 rose over the horizon, casting silver light across the rugged terrain. Jace and Maris stood together, overlooking the settlement. The air was calm, the danger of the past days fading, replaced by a sense of accomplishment and hope. "Do you think we'll ever stop?" Maris asked, a hint of exhaustion in her voice. Jace chuckled softly. "Not really. The frontier always has challenges. But humans adapt. We survive. And we thrive. That's what makes us special." Maris nodded, understanding the truth in his words. She had faced death, been betrayed, and confronted impossible odds, yet she had survived not through luck, but through courage, intellect, and the unwavering human spirit. Humanity had triumphed on Vega 9, and that triumph would be remembered in the colony's history for generations. As night deepened, the colony celebrated quietly. Humans had reclaimed their home, restored justice, and proven that even in the most remote and hostile corners of the galaxy, they could rise above adversity. Maris, once condemned to die at dawn, now stood as a symbol of ingenuity, courage, and resilience. Jace finally spoke, his voice calm but filled with meaning. The frontier isn't safe, but humans are unstoppable. Remember that. Today, you learned it. Tomorrow, everyone else will see it too. Maris looked at him, gratitude and determination shining in her eyes. I won't forget. Humanity survives because we refuse to give up, because we act, think, and fight for what's right. That's what I've learned here. Jace placed a hand on her shoulder, a silent acknowledgement of their partnership, their shared triumph, and the bond forged through danger and ingenuity. And that, Maris Cade, is why humans will always rise. No matter the odds, no matter the machine, no matter the law. The stars of Vega 9 twinkled above them, a reminder of the vast galaxy beyond. Yet in this moment, on this harsh, beautiful planet, humanity had proven itself once more. They had faced betrayal, danger, and impossible odds, and emerged victorious. The dawn of a new era had begun. Vega 9 would rebuild stronger, smarter, and more united than ever before. And Maris Cade, the engineer who had faced death at dawn, had become a symbol of what humans could achieve when courage, intelligence, and determination combined. Jace Talon mounted his grav cycle, ready to continue his journey across the frontier. But this time, he was not alone. Maris would accompany him, their partnership forged in danger and solidified in triumph. Together, they would face the challenges ahead, ready to prove again that humans, clever, brave, and unyielding, could overcome any obstacle. And so, as the twin suns rose higher, casting their golden light over the rebuilt colony, Maris and Jace set off. The frontier awaited them, full of dangers, mysteries, and opportunities. Yet they rode with confidence, for they knew the truth. Humanity, when clever and brave, could survive, triumph, and inspire hope across the stars. The story of Vega 9 ended not with despair, but with victory, a testament to the power, courage, and indomitable spirit of humanity.